Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Control Port Podcast, episode 186. I'm Benjamin Yoder, here today on Christmas Day. I'm recording this podcast early. We're doing this on a Friday. I was thinking this weekend I need to delay a bit to get more content for the podcast, but after I sat down and looked through the news and thought about the things I was going to talk about this week, surprisingly I probably have plenty. If not too much. I hopefully won't have a 40-minute podcast like last week, but yeah, so I'm here on Christmas Day chatting you up. But for you, it's Monday. You're like, Ben, what do you get for Christmas? Well, I got an air fryer. I don't really know what to do with that other than cook stuff, food things, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll be good in my life. I don't know. The other thing I got was my dad made me an Atokadol candle. I mean, it's kind of silly. It's like I think he said it's like a cathedral candle or something, and it's basically got Atokadol characters kind of pasted around the sides of it. I'm gonna, if you're listening to the audio version, I'm holding this up on video, but the focus is not amazing. I posted a video of it up on my Twitter as well, so I'll link the Twitter in the description for the podcast, so you can look at it. But I was like, oh, that's very very sweet of him. I was not expecting an Atokadol related gift. My sister tried to get me something Atokadol related once, and it's just like, there's definitely Atokadol merch out there, but good luck on getting it, unless you're looking at like Yahoo Auctions Japan or something like that, right? Or Japanese, some kind of Japanese online shop. At one point I tried to buy a Rose acrylic stand, the character Rose. But I remember having to jump through some hoops. There's also like a coin thing you could do where you put it's like a little canister that had Atokadol characters printed around the sides, and you could put your coins in there. I tried to get that too, but at the time I had to go through like a proxy, and I wasn't really willing to do that. I think this was like closer to like 2016 or 2015, so I think I did not have nearly as much money either, so it would have been quite a small investment for me, I guess. I think I was still in Georgia when I was looking into that, so I think I was still between not having a job and college. And then this isn't Christmas related, but I also finally got my copies of Blaster Master Zero 1 and 2. If you didn't know the chronicles of this, I probably complain about it more than I should. Probably every time limited run games comes up, I complain about it. I ordered these back in May, and they finally arrived, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, that was such a long time to wait for these. I'm not a big fan of the limited run games model. I don't blame them for it per se, but it's just like, I'd rather just be able to buy games physically, reasonably, right? So that's actually something I talk a little bit about in one of my 2020 in review videos that I'll talk about in a little bit here. I also pre-ordered Panzer Dragoon Remake for PlayStation 4. If you weren't listening to the podcast last time I brought this up, I really wanted the Switch version of Panzer Dragoon Remake, or at the time that was the only version that was there, and I ended up forgetting that it was on pre-order, so I didn't end up buying it. So I made sure to grab it this time around. I'm not even a big fan of the original Panzer Dragoon, to be completely honest with you. I think Panzer Dragoon Orta is just a really great game, and the original one is maybe a little simple for me. I haven't played Zwei or whatever, the second game, so I don't know if that's an issue where I only like Panzer Dragoon Orta, or if maybe it's just going backwards in that series just was not a great way to experience it, kind of thing, right? So we'll see. I'll put a little bit of time into it. Panzer Dragoon's not a very long game, so beating the remake, I assume, is probably going to be pretty straightforward. I've only ever played the Xbox version of Panzer Dragoon as well, so what I mean by that is in Panzer Dragoon Orta, there is a unlockable to play the PC version of the original Panzer Dragoon that they ported to the Xbox. It doesn't run super great, but it's not like Panzer Dragoon was running amazing either on the Saturn, but I think it was more consistent frame rate on the Saturn versus the PC version. I think is a bit more variable, especially once they ported it to Xbox. But I never actually saw anyone do a straight comparison. It was more word of mouth at the time when I heard about it that it didn't run as well. So I might go and look up on YouTube to see if somebody's ever done a real true comparison between those. I feel like somebody probably has. But yeah. In terms of games I've been playing this week, I've only really been playing one on my own, and that is Happy Dance Collection for the Wii. I was kind of I haven't, being working from home, and also, it being the winter time, so it gets dark outside. I haven't been like going out and exercising as much. I like to go walk in the park, although the park near my house, like I don't really want to be out there after dark, to be honest. I was having trouble finding like excuses to be active without, just being like, I'm just gonna do, push-ups and lift weights that I have in my house or something. And I was thinking like maybe I'll get like Ring Fit, and I also was like maybe I'll get fitness boxing too. And I was like, well, I have all these like dancing games that I purchased on the Wii. You've got Wii Cheer 2, and I also picked it up Happy Dance Collection while I was in Japan. So I was like, well, I never actually put Happy Dance Collection in, so I decided to go ahead and give it a shot. And man, this is such a love-hate relationship game for me. I love pretty much everything about it. If you don't know, basically it's very similar like Just Dance or something, or Wii Cheer, where you're dancing with the Wii remote. You're doing motions, and you're just basically going through a song, and then once the song's over, you get a rating based off that. And the challenge comes from the fact that it just is really difficult to find out the way it wants you to move to register moves in a song. It's really hard to figure out, if you miss something in a song, is it my fault or is it the Wii remote's fault? And if it is my fault, how do I correct this? And I did see that there are videos online, people who are perfecting songs in this game. So I'm like, okay, obviously there's a way to do this properly, right? Or maybe they grinded it out a ridiculous amount. But what I ended up doing was going a little slower, and that seemed to help a lot with like the dance moves and things like that. But it's just like really hard to figure out, what the proper movements are. And I still have problems where like I can go 50% of a song, like feeling like I did everything right, but the game will be like, nope, you missed the note. There are little notes that pop up to the right of the screen when you miss a note. So it'll say in English, actually in English it says okay, and then in Japanese it says miss, and then it also says off. And I think it might also say late as well. But those are all in Japanese, so I actually don't know 100%. So you can get some idea of, what the problem was. And what I find is that, a lot of times what you want to do in these dance games, I feel like, is you want to kind of replicate what's happening on screen, right? You want to kind of replicate what the character's doing in terms of general movement and things like that. And I felt like if I did that sometimes, it resulted in me not getting the note. And so I'd have to like, there'd be things where like they're shaking their arms up and down really fast, and I'd have to do it at maybe like half speed of the characters on screen, and that would basically allow me to actually get that note registered as properly completed kind of thing. So that kind of stuff is, a little challenging, and I might play a little bit of Wii Cheer and Wii Cheer 2 just to see and make sure that, it's not just something specific to Happy Dance Collection being very, very specific on its timing. I remember when I played Gabriella's Ghostly Groove on WiiWare, I had very similar issues where it's just like sometimes you do a move and it feels right, it looks right, like everything you feel like you're doing is matching what's on screen, but it just doesn't work. And it's just hard to figure out what you did wrong in a situation like that where you have like you're moving the Wii remote around, and there's just like a large dynamic range of what can be done to try to correct that motion, and you don't have enough information to actually correct it. Admittedly, Happy Dance Collection is in Japanese, so there could be a chance that I'm just missing whatever is, being conveyed to me. There's definitely a lot of screens in the game that are like, hey, make sure you're holding the Wii remote forward, make sure you're holding it this specific way in your hands, make sure you're not pointing at the screen when you're doing moves and things like that. So there's a lot of things that the gamer is trying to do to keep you, in line with what they expect. For sure. But the part of this game that I really love is that it's just really cute and charming. There's a story mode, so you're like an idol, you're like a schoolgirl, and you end up in a dance thing with a guy idol that's there, and then their manager kind of comes over and is like, oh, why don't you come work in the idol business? So you go and do a bunch of songs for like kids shows, or as far as my understanding, it's like you're doing songs for kids shows, animes, and so you're auditioning for these different parts and things like that. And a part of this game the story mode of this game is a fashion rhythm game, actually. So it plays very much like Aikatsu and Love and Berry, where before a song you can dress up your character, and depending on how you dress up your character, that affects your score in the song. It also will give you like a fan letter. So if you do like have a perfect outfit, I believe is what triggers this. They'll send you a fan letter afterwards, and you get like a little mark by the song that you got a letter for dressing up a certain way. The challenging part with this fashion progression stuff, though, is that in the story mode, it slowly unlocks certain clothing items. And I'm not sure if it's a consistent set of items, if it's randomized or what. But as far as I can tell, some items that they request of you, there's no way you can have them, or there's no way for me to purchase them at this time. Maybe I'm missing something here again. But basically, like, there'll be times where they'll be like, oh, we want you to be in a bear kigurumi. But as far as I can tell, I don't have the ability to purchase a bear kigurumi. So I have to kind of just like put on different clothes. And some clothes seem to share aspects with other clothing items. So like, even though I didn't wear a bear kigurumi, I wore like a kind of shirt with like, you know, I don't know, a pattern on it, like a bright yellow shirt kind of thing. And kind of like these little tennis shoes that I think were kind of like bright or whatever, and then it seemed like I got kind of like a medium rating, like, you tried to be kind of bearish. I don't really know what the thought process was behind it, to be honest. But sometimes you can kind of make it work so you get like a partial score at least. And that really helps for completing the songs, especially if, you know, because of the tracking issues. The biggest challenge I have right now is I'm at a song where I have no clothes that kind of fulfill what they're asking me for. And also the song is really finicky at certain parts with tracking what I'm doing, or I'm messing it up, one or the other. So it's just kind of like, I'm just kind of stuck in terms of progression because I don't have the clothes for it. And I also don't have the accuracy to be able to complete the song. So one thing I might try to do is go back to older songs and maybe see if wearing particular clothes gives me like a higher score, and maybe if I get higher scores, I'll rank up, and maybe if I rank up, I'll get more clothing options. I don't know if that's how the game works, but I think that might be my next approach, to try to you know, see if I can unlock clothes, because right now the fact that I can't, you know, pass this one song because I don't have the right clothes, and also the tracking seems really finicky. Like, I basically have to perfect the song, I think, to get past this one part of the story. I think that might be the best approach to take. But again, I don't know if that's true, that ranking up is attached with you know, some other stat other than story progression. So we'll see. I'm still working that game out. I'm very much enjoying it, though. It's very much my kind of game aesthetically. And you know, as somebody who's a fan of fashion rhythm titles, I always feel stupid for saying fashion rhythm because it's basically a genre I made up. But you know, I think there are a lot of games that fit under this kind of moniker, like Love and Berry, like Aikatsu. I imagine Prepara does too. I didn't play that much Prepara. I played one round of Prepara when I was in Japan. There is a Switch version of Prepara though, so I might get that eventually. But last I checked, I think it was really expensive. I think it was like $70 for a copy, and I was like, ooh, maybe not. So, and I have 3 Aikatsu games on 3DS, so I should play those Aikatsu games first. But first, I'm going to finish Happy Dance Collection. And eventually, I'll play some We Cheer 1 and 2. The problem with We Cheer 1 and 2 is that, you know, I have the US releases at least. There are Japanese versions that are surprisingly expensive, actually. But or at least on eBay, right? Whenever you go to buy something on eBay, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what the actual price is for a Japanese copy. It's like, hey, First Kiss Story, $70, and then, you know, if you go to Japan and you go to the store, it's like $20, right? So it's, you know, I'd probably check in with Vink and see if he could find me copies of We Cheer 1 and 2 if I decided to go that route. But anyways, so I have the English version of We Cheer 1 and 2, so, you know, it has Western songs in it, and I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, but like, one of the benefits of playing a Japanese rhythm game is, you know, as somebody who's not tuned into music really, all the songs might as well be original. I don't know what they are, and so they basically become, oh, this is the Happy Dance Collection soundtrack to me, rather than being associated with 30 billion other things. Versus, like, you know, I think in Ring Fit Adventure, there's like, or not Ring Fit Adventure, Fitness Boxing, there's like a bunch of music I recognize in there, and I don't know, it kind of distracts from the experience a little bit. I think overall, I'd personally prefer a unique soundtrack, but at least with like a Japanese one, I don't recognize the soundtrack, right? Where if it's a US one, it's like, yes, that is Eye of the Tiger that I'm punching to or something. I don't know if Eye of the Tiger is in fitness boxing or not. I would like to check out Fitness Boxing 2 at some point, but I'm kind of uncertain how I feel about the time I spent with Fitness Boxing 1. I feel like maybe I should spend more time with Fitness Boxing 1 before I buy Fitness Boxing 2. But we'll see. Happy Dance Collection is my focus right now in terms of rhythm motion game, I guess. So, and I'm glad I'm playing it, and I really like how it looks. If you're curious how the game looks, I posted about it on Twitter all week this week. So if you want to be harassed by me about Happy Dance Collection, feel free to follow me on Twitter, I guess. On my personal Twitter, I guess I should say, not the website Twitter. The other game I played, but I played this on stream, so you can see me play through this if you want, is I went ahead and played some of the Tozan RPG, or the Climbing RPG is what it translates to. I think it's like Conquering the Silvery Peak is the subtitle. This is one of those games that, like, if you look it up online, there's like a bunch of different names that people put it under, so, you know, it's a Simple Series game, and if you need to know the specific one, it is Simple Series Volume 92, and it's a part of the 1500 Simple Series. So anyways, so this game I've had for a while, and I've actually played it on the website before, during I think the 1,000 Arms streams. I did it as like a quick play stream. The problem being is I had no idea what I was doing, and it was kind of challenging because I wasn't sure what was going on and how to properly play the game. But I scanned the manual and everything, and was able to plop the manual into a translate tool, and was able to understand what I need to do. And it's not that complicated. It really just comes down to the biggest challenge I had was understanding which each climber's role is. There's 4 different classes, one being an attacker, one is being a climber who's like faster, the other one's a Sherpa, and he's like kind of like a tank, but also can set up like tents so you guys can like rest and heal in the tents. And then also you have a nurse who can heal actively in battle and power up party members. But the big thing is that you have a spirit gauge, and as the characters are fighting or as they're climbing, they drain their spirit gauge. And once they get to 0 on their spirit gauge, they get sent back to the highest tent you have. So if somebody set up a tent like halfway up the mountain, they'll go back down to halfway down the mountain. So the big thing was me understanding that setting up the tent recovered the spirit gauge, and the fact that when you set up tents, that is where like the characters respawn and everything. And then also the fact that when characters die, they don't actually die. They just need to be rescued, and then they get sent back to the previous tent. So I streamed that this week on Christmas Eve, or last week on Christmas Eve. So if you want to check out that game, I played it for about 2.5 hours. We got about 2 mountains in. There's 6 mountains in total. I think I'll go ahead and try to finish this game up. I don't know when right now, but I think I will make it a priority to just kind of wrap up and make probably a casual review of it at some point, sometime early next year, and then move on from there. But I do want to finish it, I think, because it seems very doable for me now that I understand how the game works. If you don't know, it's a Hunex game too, so that's kind of also another thing is like, hey, it's a Hunex game. I gotta play it. I gotta finish it. That's why we're gonna finish Industrial Spy Operation Espionage. Now, I actually like Industrial Spy Operation Espionage quite a bit. So yeah. In terms of news this week, there are a few things, a couple of sad stories, and then two games that I'm kind of interested in. By sad stories, all in context, sad stories within the video game industry. And one of these is like not even really going to affect anything all that much. I make it, when I say sad story, I'm probably overblowing it a bit. Let's just get on with it. So the Galgun re-release of the first original Galgun. So if you don't know, that was a on-rail shooter that came out for Xbox 360. That essentially is kind of like a Virtual Cop clone where you're like kind of going around and you basically like shoot these girls, and it's kind of a somewhat erotic game. It's not pornographic or anything like that, but it is definitely sexually suggestive. This game came out on 360 a long time ago. Then the sequel came out on PlayStation 3. Maybe PlayStation 4, actually. I think it was PlayStation 4 was Galgun Double Peace. And then there's Galgun 2, which is like its own thing too. I always forget about Double Peace and Galgun 2 are their own separate things. But so the original remake of Galgun was being released on Nintendo Switch, PC, and Xbox One. And the kind of interesting thing about Xbox One was, the original Galgun was an Xbox 360 title, and also the fact that it wasn't coming to PlayStation 4, likely due to, Sony's policy changes, regarding how they handle content, specifically content that I would imagine, specifically the fact that they portray like underage characters in a sexual context, right? Or characters that appear underage, they technically could all be 18, right? But they're all in a high school, right? And I always see people complain like, well, like The Last of Us has sex scenes, and Cyberpunk you can see penises or whatever. But I really think that underage thing is probably a big crux there. I know some people say they have a bias against like anime, and I think that's probably true to some extent. I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically that's probably the reason. And so it was kind of this interesting thing that, it was coming to Xbox, this game, but it wasn't going to be going to PlayStation 4, which made me kind of wonder, like, since Microsoft didn't seem to be following kind of the Sony policy thing, that we might end up in a situation where a game like Senran Kagura might end up, having, a Switch, PC, and Xbox release kind of thing. Maybe not even so much Xbox, but that was like a possible scenario kind of thing. Not really a guarantee. But it seems like the Xbox One version of the game was canceled. It sounds like it's probably due to content. It looks like Microsoft asked them to censor something in the game. They didn't specify what. And they basically said, we want the experience to be consistent across the board on the platform. And honestly, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're going to release your game, your horny erotic game, and then censor it on one platform, like good luck selling that on that platform probably. So yeah, I'm not a Galgun fan, or at least I have not played Galgun to the extent that I can be like, oh, I'm like excited for this game or anything. I played a little bit of Galgun double piece at Portland Retro Game Expo one year and was pretty underwhelmed. I like Inti Creates, I like the content that they make. But Galgun was very slow, sluggish, and it just kind of took a long time. It's one of those things that, like, I'm always okay with erotic games that use eroticism, like, in smart ways. But in the case of Galgun, I think it actually hurts the game experience, in a lot of ways, right? So just in terms of like, hey, when you're going like into the, I forget what it's called, like the mode where you're like circling around the girl and like shooting this like certain points on their body. The only benefit of it is that you like, it basically is like a screen clearing move or whatever. But at least from what I played of the demo at Portland Retro Game Expo, it really just seemed like a slower way to clear screens. Maybe it's a safer way though. Maybe if you're like low on health or something, it would make sense. I'm talking about something I played like 4 years ago at this point, right? So, I can't say too much, but I didn't have a great first impression of Galgun, and this game, I didn't personally think I'd ever get around to playing, but I think it does kind of like hurt that narrative a little bit that I was always kind of somewhat hopeful for, that like, those kind of games might find a home on Xbox. But it seems like it's probably going to be PC and Switch only. And honestly, I don't have a ton of, confidence Nintendo's not going to someday, make a change and be like, hey, you need to, censor this on our platform too, especially if Sony and Microsoft are taking those stances, right? So yeah, we might just be ending up in a situation where, on consoles, we're going to get more strict content control possibly for third parties. I don't think that will be the case on PC, but you might see cases where like, because it's this way on the console versions, to keep it, feature parity between all the versions, they'll go ahead and censor the PC version as well. Censor, I don't want to, I put, if you're listening, I put censored in quotes there, but like, I always use the word censored, but I'm really not a stickler for the definition of that. In this case, their policy made it, make a change to publish on their platform, right? I know some people get all kind of caught up about using the word censor. I think it's just the easiest way to talk about it. Whether that's the right way to talk about it, I think is a whole other thing that I personally think is just kind of like, cutting or splitting hairs, right? On what that really means, right? So it's more of a vocabulary thing than I think is an actual argument against like what, when these companies make these kind of changes to games and things like that. So anyways, I don't think this matters too much in the grand scheme of things. I wasn't really expecting a lot of Japanese publishers to end up on Xbox anyways. I was always kind of hopeful because, I would love for there to be a market for that on one of the more powerful consoles. The Nintendo Switch, the biggest problem with that is that, the Switch is not great hardware, right? And you're going to get a lesser experience than you get on PC. So having a console version that was probably going to be somewhat on par with the PC version would have been kind of nice. That and the more platforms they can go to, the better, right? But yeah, I don't know. The other story is that Gunslinger Stratos 3 is ending operation on April 1st, 2021. Gunslinger Stratos is a series I never really got into. It's one of those arena fighters for arcades, and they have like network play and everything, so you can kind of play online and do matchmaking and stuff like that. The one I always wanted to play was Magician's Dead, and I only ever got to play it once at the round 1 in Georgia, but that was after I'd already moved, so I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with it. So I actually, while I was in Japan, I picked up a Nessica card with the full intention of playing some Gunslinger Stratos when I came back, because the round 1 by me in Las Vegas does have a Gunslinger Stratos 3 machine, but then coronavirus happened, so I didn't end up doing that, and then now the Gunslinger Stratos is being shut down. So I don't know how much there was a online scene for that game, at least during Western hours for when that would have been, when you could actually go to round 1 and play. I don't know if the servers were even interlinked between Japan and the US. I feel like you kind of would need that to be the case to keep the population up, but who can say? Probably not. I don't know. Anyways, point being, I was kind of planning on that, like last year, being like going to round 1 maybe for a couple months and really getting to know the ins and outs of Gunslinger Stratos 3, and it seems like that won't be possible probably unless I go for it like early next year. But I feel like I'm still not super comfortable, going to an arcade at this point, especially right now specifically. Maybe if it was during the summer and I had made a decision earlier, I maybe would have gone and done it. But, Gunslinger Stratos 3 was never my first choice when it came to it. It's kind of like, Style Savvy. Style Savvy was never my first choice when it came to dress-up games on the 3DS. I always wanted to play Fab Style instead. But, it's still one of those games, and it was the one that was most accessible to me, and I wish I got a chance to spend some time with it, but I'm going to guess probably not happening. Not sure what else I can use this Nessica card for. I'm sure there's something, but we'll see. So there is a new trailer for a game we've talked about before called Buddy Mission Bond. If you don't know what this is kind of a interesting like detective spy, very anime manga looking kind of game, where you're these four detective guys that are all like, one's like a very like Western looking guy, and the other one's like a guy who's like a ninja. One's like this very preppy looking samurai dude. And the last guy is like this very brawler looking street gang kind of guy. And initially when I looked at this game, I was like, man, this guy has a great style, but it looks very much like a visual novel. So I don't know if I'll actually play this, because I just haven't really given visual novels the time of day lately. I probably should play another visual novel sometime, but I just kind of, look at it and go, wow, this looks great. Like 24 Tokyo. I'm not going to talk about 24 Tokyo on this week's podcast, but we'll probably talk about 24 Tokyo again here sometime soon, because I did some stuff with that this weekend. Anyways, that aside though. So like I was like, I probably won't ever play this, but then I saw in the game last time that they had actual like mini games that would go on when you're infiltrating the buildings, where you have to like dodge traps and things like that. I was like, that's really cool. I like that. And like it's all fully rendered in 3D and everything, so like you have these character models running around and stuff. This new trailer gave a bigger look at that, at the actual game mechanics. The big thing for me was that when you go to infiltrate location, you get to move around. Like it's not just jumping from minigame to minigame while you're dodging the traps. You can explore the environment. Now what does that fully mean? Like, is it going to be more than just like pressing A on things in the environment? Nothing in the trailer seems to suggest that. It seems like you're just kind of moving from one spot to another, but in a very like industrial spy way. You can go and like search the different rooms for things, and it seems seems like there's like a map, so you can go in different doors and look around, and you have like a partner character with you. So I think there's some dialogue and stuff you can do while you're searching around. So I think it looks really cool, and aesthetically it looks very much like my kind of game. It kind of looks like a it kind of looks like Rhythm Thief in some ways in terms of like the map structure, or maybe Professor Layton, but like with a detective anime vibe kind of thing. It reminds me a lot of Akka. If you ever saw that anime, that was a really, well, I don't want to say it was a really good anime, but it was an anime I really enjoyed. It has that kind of aesthetic. The biggest challenge is this comes out in January, I think January 29th in Japan. There's been no announced localization for this game, and does it look good? Or it looks like my kind of game, right? And it's got like a really nice aesthetic, but the game looks like it's pretty dense in Japanese text. There's like an investigation phase that happens where you're going around town talking to people. You have to make like dialogue choices. I do like when you choose, like, I don't know if it's specifically the right dialogue choice, but sometimes when you choose a dialogue choice, it goes critical talk on screen. I'm like, that's the best English you could use for that. There's also like one where it's like a picture of, this is on the website, it's like a picture of him like holding a gun out, and it says like thinking mode on top, and then the next screenshot says nice. so yeah, I love kind of awkward English in Japanese games. This is getting a physical release in Japan. I'm maybe less confident this will get a physical release in the US. I might wait a while to kind of see how things go, but I am kind of tempted to just go ahead and order a copy. I just really worry with how dense it looks text-wise that I will not be able to, really digest it. And then I also haven't really had a situation yet where I played a game in Japanese first and then I got an English localization. So I don't know if there's going to be a case where I'm going to play a game a second time after they put the English localization out. I feel like that's I probably would, but it would be kind of a waste of time to play it in Japanese first and then the English version. Probably. But we'll see. I love how it looks. It's the iShield 21 artist. The game actually, like the infiltration sequences actually remind me a lot of the iShield 21 games on the Wii, in terms of like how they look mechanically. I really need to pick up iShield 21 on the Wii. I haven't gotten around to it. I saw a copy while I was in Japan, but I think it was like $15, and that's not bad at all. But when I was looking at it, it was at a time when I was trying to not buy that many games because I was trying to not get a bunch of bulk in my luggage at that point in time. But if it was towards the end of my trip that I saw it, there probably would have been a greater chance that I would have went ahead and picked it up. So yeah. The last news story here is not that much of a news story, but I thought it was kind of clever. Is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. They added a classic mode to the game, which or they're adding a classic mode, which is, I think it's free DLC. So like I think even if you aren't a Kickstarter person, you can still pick it up and check it out. And I think it's like 5 levels that they built out specifically for this mode, and it just plays like an older Castlevania game. So Miriam like does the strut, the walk that old Castlevania characters do. It's like, you have to walk up the staircases, and she slowly walks up the staircases. I just thought it was like really a really fun reuse of assets. It's using all the same areas from the game and stuff, but it just kind of recontextualizes all that stuff into a classic Castlevania format. I think what's kind of weird though is that they kind of have already somewhat made Bloodstained classic in terms of Curse of the Moon. Admittedly, Curse of the Moon is a very expansive game in a lot of ways, specifically with its mechanics, in kind of a crazy way. I'll always stand by that. Curse of the Moon is kind of a crazy, awesome game. But Curse of the Moon does also have like a classic mode that was kind of similar. So it seems a little weird that it kind of overlapped with that a little bit. I don't know if Curse of the Moon 2 had a classic mode. I assume it did, but again, I have not played that yet because they announced a physical, and the physical is still not even on pre-order yet. I'm suffering. So yeah, kind of leaning into that actually, where that's the end of the news stories there. This week I have 2020 year in review content coming up, and the reason I bring this up right now is that my first video that's going up tomorrow, by the time you hear this, is kind of a 5 thoughts of 2020. I do this every year where I just kind of talk about some of the thoughts I had throughout the year about video games, not necessarily about topics related to 2020, just things that I had been thinking about in 2020. And one of the things is physical copies, and the frustration behind it that I've had this year specifically, and this worry that that's going to start driving me away from buying games, some newer games, and also, maybe going digital and just kind of accepting the fact that I might just not get the physical of this, even though, or having to double dip depending on the game, right? Like buying the digital version of Curse Moon 2 and then buying the physical version when it comes out. But I just don't like that. It's kind of frustrating. So I don't know. Anyways, that's one of the topics I talk about in there, but that's going up on Tuesday. I'll have that 5 thoughts of 2020 going up. I also have 3 games that surprised me in 2020 going up on Wednesday. Again, all these things are things you've heard about if you listen to the podcast regularly, but it's just kind of a reminder to myself and I guess somewhat archival summary of what I was thinking about this year in games and stuff. And then on the 31st, assuming I haven't recorded this last video yet, but it should be an overview of a review of what we did on the website this year, what worked, what didn't work, and then also a look at what we're going to do in 2021, and hopefully we can stick to some kind of schedule format for that. So yeah, that's what's coming up this week. I'm recording this on Friday. I am also doing a Japan stream on Saturday where I'm basically going over all the pictures I took in Japan a year later after the fact. It's literally, this time a year ago I was in Japan at the moment, specifically in Osaka. And I always wanted to go over these pictures at some point, and I kind of overthought it for a very long time. And recently I was just like, you know what, just do this the easiest way you can. Also, I have some other project that's reliant on some of the tools I'll be using during this stream probably. So I'm using it as like a testing ground for that. So, if you're listening to this on the podcast day, I went ahead and recorded that stream probably, assuming it happened. And it's probably up on the website already if you want to go check that out. If you wanted to hear me talk about my Japan trip and the nightmare person I am at properly doing a trip. So yeah, I still got to prepare for that a little bit. I probably should have done that earlier rather than work on more 2020 videos. I probably should have just enjoyed my Christmas day rather than work on videos all day. But I went and saw my dad and everything, so that I did something. Anyways, in terms of streams coming up, we have the Smash Brothers Ultimate stream coming up where we're going to play some Smash Brothers, and if you want to join in on that day, you can do that. Previously we had talked about maybe playing Smash 4 on Wii U. I think the person, Alex specifically, was saying he might not be able to make it, and I don't recall if anybody else said they only had Smash 4 on Wii U. So I think we'll start up, and I'll wait a little bit, maybe mess around with something else in the meantime, and then once we get some people in the chat, then we can kind of figure out what we'll do initially, but if it makes sense, we'll play some Smash 4. If not, we'll probably, if nobody in the chat needs to play Smash 4, then we might just play Smash Ultimate. I need to update that game. I'm thinking about buying the new Fighter Pass because I haven't played as any of the newer characters or at all, so might be fun to mess around with them. So we'll be doing that stream. And I had mentioned that I was going to try to get back to Industrial Spy Operation Espionage after that Smash Brothers stream, but I think I want to take a longer break from that game than I initially thought. So I'm going to try to find something to do in between the Smash Brothers stream and the next time we get back to Industrial Spy Operation Espionage, and we'll figure that out from there. Otherwise, I think that's it in terms of content. Last week, I had a review go up for Tomodachi Collection, a casual review, so you can go ahead and check that out. And then hopefully sometime early next year, we're going to have a Valkyria Revolution featured review. I have not touched it recently, unfortunately, so I'm probably going to take a break on some of the casual reviews. I might write down some of the notes I have or record the audio for them just to get, my thoughts out and down, and then worry about the editing later for those, just to kind of, get... Not dedicate a ton of time to them, up front. I got to do Ridge Racer DS. I'll probably have to do Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. Still working on Alleyway. And then once I get the Tozan RPG, that's probably going to go up as well as a casual review at some point too. So yeah. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. OneControlPort.com is the website. And also, yeah, if you want to check out the stream time, it's 7 p.m. On Thursdays, 7 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays. And I will be there playing Smash Brothers this week, so feel free to come and join in if you want to. I don't know 100% how that's going to work out, but we'll figure it out. Anyways, I hope you have a great week, and I think the next time we'll talk, let me double check my calendar here. Next time we will talk, it will be 2021. So enjoy the rest of your 2020, and yeah, have a good time. Bye.